live. So I am going to assume that we are live right now, Adam, as we get ready to preview a glorious Saturday slate. And this actually is going to be a lot of different talking points here. There are going to be a lot of value plays, and there's going to be a lot of goodness. So chat, when you see this, just type in there. Let us know that we are live. And here we go. Look at that. They already know. They're already saying it before I say it. Thank you. Much appreciated. For those of you that are not used to these particular surroundings, I am in state of Washington. I always say state of Washington because normally I would say Washington State, but living out in the Washington, D.C. area, I had to break myself of the habit of saying, oh, yeah, I'm from Washington, because people think that means you're from Washington, D.C. out there. And if you say Washington State, they're like, wait, what? So if you started out with state of, then they're like, oh, okay, because everybody's not from D.C. It's pretty wild.
Yeah. People from here, though, like we call it D.C., so it's weird that people get, like if somebody says they're from Washington, I assume they're from the state. If they say because if they're from D.C., they call it D.C.
Yes, well, I guess it's other transplants that aren't quite aware of it yet either. But here I am out in a banned state of all things. Not to fear, plenty of places I can pick up my edibles, my sticky buds, and all of the goodness for that particular habit, of which I don't partake, but no fantasy sports for money out here. It's very sad, Adam. Very, very sad. Quickly, hit on your Stanley Johnson thoughts. I see chat's fired up and talking about that already. So give them your take. Let them know that you were there with them.
Yeah, I mean, it was relative to the field. I think it was my biggest stand last night. I had like 40% on DraftKings where he was 4% owned. So, yeah, I was right there with you guys. Just sucks. I mean, obviously nothing you can do about it. It was just really frustrating the way it worked out too. Like you had him ruled in, you had him announced in the starting lineup, which I actually was kind of disappointed about because of the decrease in usage. And then in between being announced as a starter after 7:00, he is suddenly injured. So I have no idea. It was frustrating. It sucked. On to today.
All right. Now we have a ton, and by a ton, I mean literally a ton of people that are probably going to be out. We're going to hit them game by game. I think that's probably the most efficient way to do it. But just from a high level, real quick, there's going to be a lot of value out there with Denver because Paul Millsap is out with a broken toe. We know that Miami could be providing us some additional value because Goran Dragic has been ruled out. We know that Wayne Ellington and Hassan Whiteside are both away from the team from the birth of their child, and Coach Spoelstra did say he expects them to miss the first part of the trip, so they're out in LA today. They play again in LA on Monday, so I suspect there's a decent chance they'll both be out. Whiteside, because he'll just use this as an excuse not to play, and then we'll have to see what happens with the other one. Apologies if I'm quiet. I'll make sure I talk a little bit louder here. Something mucked up with the setup. I did not travel with the giant microphone, but it should not be hard for me to project my voice and talk louder, but just remind me if I start to get a little soft. And then the other guy, John Wall, also out for the birth of his child. So let's count back 9 months and see what everybody was doing. But, well, we know what they were doing, but interesting. So let's get started here, Adam. Game by game, we'll jump in with Sacramento and Indiana. This game has a 222 over-under. Indiana is favored at home by 4. We do know that we will be without Victor Oladipo. Domantas Sabonis sat out on Friday with an illness. He is questionable for today. And this is a matchup that we saw just last, I believe it was last Saturday, where these two teams faced off in Sacramento. Lead the way. What do you have for us from this?
I mean, obviously a lot here depends on Sabonis. If he's back in, then he goes right back to his role as a guy that you can't trust in cash games because of the minutes, but as someone who is appealing in tournaments because of how productive he is, and it's obviously a huge pace-up spot for Indiana. Also a little bit of a boost if he's in because with Marvin Bagley back, you're getting big lineups again out of Sacramento, whether it's Cauley Stein and Bagley alongside each other or Costa Koufos and Bagley alongside each other. It's just even easier for Indiana to play the Turner-Sabonis lineups for more minutes, which obviously is good for Sabonis. If he's out, then you get more of a boost for Miles Turner, who was in foul trouble last night, lost a substantial amount of minutes there, but should, barring foul trouble, be able to play 32 to 34 minutes here if Sabonis is out with, an increased usage rate and increased role as a facilitator. So really a lot depends on Sabonis. If Sabonis is out, you also get Kyle O'Quinn, who, barring foul trouble to Turner, should not play anywhere close to as many minutes as he played last night, but who also is like a 1.5 fantasy point per minute guy in a pace up spot here against Sacramento, to where, he becomes a value option regardless, just because he's like minimum price. So Sabonis really changes like everything for this game.
All right. What are your thoughts on, if he's out, are you willing to just roll the dice on Kyle O'Quinn? We did get a nice 27-minute double-double from him last night, but that always feels like a risk going to him no matter what.
Right. I mean, the thing you have to take away from last night is that Miles Turner was in foul trouble, and then the game blew out. We shouldn't be expecting O'Quinn to play a ton of minutes alongside Turner, though Sacramento is a team that will allow them to do so if they choose. So, maybe you can project O'Quinn for like 20 minutes or something, 18 to 20 minutes. But realistically, most of his minutes should be at the 5, which means that you should have most of Kyle O'Quinn's minutes combined with Miles Turner's minutes adding up to 48. So you just want to be careful that you don't go back and look at yesterday and be like, oh, Kyle O'Quinn, 24 minutes and Miles Turner, 32 minutes, because that's what he normally plays. Like, it doesn't work that way. So, obviously keep that in mind. And on a slate where there should be plenty of value, the lack of minutes is a concern, but he's a point per minute monster when he gets minutes. So I still think that he's, viable as a like minimum priced guy.
All right, I'm just I'm checking here. I ran the crunch with 100, capped at 70, with a randomness at 25 to see what we would come up with any of the games, with any of the players. And it looks like that one of the popular plays thus far on DraftKings coming in at 24%. I'm assuming shortly we'll have the Osmo ownership projections, but we'll talk about those once I get those in here. But I've got Miles Turner in here on DraftKings at 24%. Seems a little bit higher than I would have thought, Adam, but this does take into account that potential suppressed minutes there for Sabonis. Thoughts on him? Anything else you want to mention?
Yeah, I mean, I have Sabonis in my baseline stuff. So Turner's not really popping. He's kind of just coming in as like a neutral play for me. But I think the minutes become a little bit more appealing for Turner. And you do see an uptick in his assist percentage and rebounding percentage, along with his usage when Sabonis is off the floor. So it would become a better spot if he sits. Outside of that, I mean, Darren Collison's fine. The price tags come up a bit. It certainly is a spot that can blow up on you, but especially if Sabonis is out, you get more you get more ball handling for Collison, or more facilitating, more assist opportunities. So I would have some interest there, but it would mostly be in the front court for me.
All right, and then over on FanDuel, it's Sabonis that's clicking in at about 11%. No Turner there. Well, 1% Turner there. So interesting to see how those guys pop up. Anything else from this game, or shall we continue on to some of our more intriguing ones?
I finally got my fantasy cruncher to pop back up. I used my baseline projections to run crunches on both sites before the show. With Sabonis penciled in for 26 minutes, I got 11% Sabonis on DraftKings. Doesn't look like I got any Miles Turner. On FanDuel, I got 15% Sabonis and 7% Turner, and that's with Sabonis in. So kind of just goes to show that if Sabonis is in, these guys become less appealing. If he's out, then you can obviously bump them a bit.
All right, excellent. And it does look like we do have live ownership projections. So I will get those loaded into Cruncher here. For those of you not using Fantasy Cruncher or not aware, you can get the Fantasy Cruncher as an add-on through Osmo.com. And the one neat thing about that, and this goes for any of Fantasy Cruncher, you can now create your own column. So when you go to upload projections, all you need to do is click on a plus button where it says add or remove column, and you can put in your own column. So this is where you can add the Osmo ownership projections. This is where you can put in the grades for Osmo, Alex Baker's player ratings, Fast Eddie Fears player ratings, etc. And you can create your own nice little dashboard with what's going on if you have a little bit of savvy with being able to download an Excel file, get the 2 or 3 columns that you want, and upload them. And the other good thing is you can upload them one column at a time. So it does work out that way. Adam, we do have a royalty in the chat real quick. Dave Lochran some of you may know him as Lofty D, wants to know, is that a new hat?
Talk to me?
Yes.
No, Lofty, if you paid attention ever during our shows, you would know that I wear it at least 4 days a week.
Sometimes it's backwards, though, right? Or is this one of the
No, different hat.
Okay. There we go. Hey, look, I'm rocking an old school fan vice t-shirt today, so there we are. We're having some fun. Okay, let's move along here to our next game. Now, this is the John Wall question coming up in chat. They are saying that they thought that they heard he was going to play. I'm looking for the news, and I'm not seeing anything that confirms that. This game is in Cleveland, so we'll want to be cognizant of that. We should know well before lock if he does make it to Cleveland, so that will be very helpful for what we're doing. With other injury news in this game, we have David Nwaba, who has been dealing with sore knee, questionable. He has missed the last couple. Rodney Hood has a sore foot. I believe, was he an in-game injury last night?
Yeah, he was.
Yes.
He left the game, never came back.
Okay, so he only got 14 minutes in last night. We do have Jeff Green's been dealing with a sore back. He is probable. And then, of course, John Wall, questionable with the paternity. Is he with the mother and child, or is he heading out to play here with the team? Did you have any inkling on what the plans were?
No, haven't heard anything. Kind of like without any news, I'm guessing that he doesn't make the trip to Cleveland. But again, that's a total guess, and hopefully we just get news sooner rather than later.
All right, so from the top, let's talk about as if he's going to play, and then we'll continue with the rest of the game.
Yeah, so I mean, if he plays, then I don't think he's particularly appealing just because it's actually a pretty deep point guard position today, and paying up for John Wall in a huge pace down spot against Cleveland doesn't seem like the route that I really want to go at this position. Not to say that he's a bad play if you can fit him. It's just that, I think other guys are more appealing. Bradley Beal's priced up a bit as well after, he's playing a boatload of minutes regardless, but priced up after his big game without Wall. So really makes a difference at that price tag if Wall's in or out. So kind of like Sabonis, if Wall's in, it takes a lot of appeal away here. But if he's out, it just opens up a ton of stuff in this backcourt.
All right. Now, assuming he is out, how are you feeling about Tomas Satoransky, who likely will make it into the starting lineup there? Either way, he will be having additional ball handling.
Yeah, I mean, if Wall's out, I'm expecting the same starting lineup we saw last time, where we get Austin Rivers and Tomas Satoransky in the starting lineup. Satoransky's been starting regardless, but Austin Rivers joined the lineup with Wall out. Small sample size, but in their time on the floor together so far this season, Satoransky does have a higher assist percentage than Rivers. Both of them, handle the ball enough and are still cheap enough that I think you can consider either one. But their price tags have come up to where they're not, the slam dunk plays they were last time when Satoransky was like 3,700 on DraftKings and Rivers was 34. So just keep that in mind. Don't automatically just click them into your lineups. But if Wall's out, the minutes should be there for both. Up over 30 most likely. It is worth noting that in the last game, Kelly Oubre and Markieff Morris were both in foul trouble, so that did open up some more minutes for everyone. But still should get 30 plus for Satoransky and probably a little over 30 for Rivers.
All right, finishing up with the Wizards here. We did have a trade yesterday. The Wizards were part of it with Milwaukee and Cleveland. For the Wizards, they gave, from a player perspective, they gave away Smith, and they have Sam Decker, not expected to play as Decker. From Cleveland's side, they gave away George Hill. So that is going to be opening up a ton of minutes. The guys coming back to Cleveland that will be impactful will be Henson, but he is going to be out for another 10 weeks or so after having wrist surgery. But they will get Matthew Dellavedova. It sounds like we won't see them probably until the next game. Again, everybody's got to pass physicals, and the league office has to approve the trade, and they've got to tick and tie everything with the salary cap. And then there's a bunch of picks that are moving and pick swaps. So looking from the Wizards, Smith being out doesn't really change a ton with the front court, but this is sort of an intriguing matchup here for Markieff Morris going against Tristan Thompson and Larry Nance Jr. It's not like those guys are giants and are going to body him out of the way, but is Markieff going to be engaged this season? It's always the wild card question.
Right. I like going back to Keefe here. He's coming off of a couple of bad games and his minutes are ugly, but it's not anything to do with the actual rotation. He's just been in foul trouble. One thing that I actually noticed, and I kind of laughed at it before the Hawks game, and it ended up, not coming to fruition, but in the Roto World write-up of the guys being out for the Wizards, it said that Markieff Morris could flirt with 30 minutes when in reality, in games without foul trouble, he's playing well over 30 minutes consistently. And I think that's just going to probably be a common misconception that people make just looking back through his recent games, is that, he's not in line to play 32 to 34 minutes when in reality he is. So I'm still expecting him to play essentially all of the backup center minutes as long as he can stay out of foul trouble. And he gets an increase in usage if Wall is out, which would make him even more appealing, because, obviously he's not playing any of those minutes alongside Wall. So I do think it's a nice spot for Markieff Morris, a really good tournament spot, assuming that the recent game logs knock his ownership down. And Otto Porter, I think, is just a great play. I expect him to be more popular than Keefe because he's coming off of a monster game, but he's one of the big beneficiaries that you see if Wall is out. For one, there's all the minutes that Porter can handle available. But for two, you just see an increase in usage rate for Porter, and it's a pretty nice spot for him against the bad Cleveland defense. So I have a lot of interest in both of those guys.
All right, so we're going to have a lot of interest in anybody standing here for Cleveland. They're going to be running incredibly thin. We have Nwaba, who has missed the last, looks like 7 games with his knee injuries, listed as questionable. They continually have been ruling him out in plenty of time, so we shouldn't have to worry about that. Zizic is questionable with his own knee injury. Rodney Hood, again, sore foot. He was an in-game injury. Jerome Blossom game? Is this someone that we need to learn about, Adam, here? Is this going to be a G League call-up? Or let's focus on the guys that we are aware of, because they probably are going to run a 4-man or 4-guard rotation, I would guess, here with Sexton, Clarkson, Hood, potentially Burks. Maybe they move Nance sliding between the 3 and the 4. What do you got here? Start from the top. 7,100 for Tristan Thompson going against Washington. In most situations, we may say he's priced out, but at this point, with probably unfettered minutes approaching 35 to 37, would be my guess. He should be a near lock for a double-double against the Wizards.
Yeah, Tristan Thompson, we had talked about his minutes were trending back down now that the Cavs were finally getting healthy before the George Hill trade. Hill's role in the lineup essentially pushed everyone down a position, and it made it so Larry Nance could play more minutes at the 5. But now with Hill gone, I think that, obviously we got an awful game from Tristan Thompson last night, but I think that it's more realistic that you can see 36 to 38 minutes from him again. And this is a great spot against one of the worst rebounding teams in the NBA. So I think it's a really good bounce back spot for him. But also really just for everyone. I mean, Hood obviously is questionable here. If he's out, it opens up even more minutes. But Alec Burks played 38 minutes last night. Colin Sexton was up in that same range, lost a few minutes to blowout, or he would have been up around 38. Chetty's going to play up there. Larry Nance played monster minutes, though he is less productive when he's playing alongside Thompson, which is the case for a lot of those minutes. And Jordan Clarkson, we're consistently seeing 30 minutes. If this game had been close, I think he plays 33 or 34. There's just not, there's so many minutes to go around for these guys. It's a really appealing spot against a fast-paced Washington team that sucks defensively as well. It's very similar to the spot they had last night against the Kings, where it's just a huge pace-up game, and these guys are underpriced for their current roles. So, even though it's an 8-game slate, and normally I try not to play a bunch of guys from the same team on slates this big, the entire team is just underpriced for their current roles. So having 2 or 3 Cavs in lineups is probably going to be a really popular way, or a really good way to go tonight.
Yeah, between the Cavs, some of the guys on Atlanta and Denver, this is going to be a very high-scoring night. So we'll want to adjust expectations, because I think we're going to see scores once again approaching 400 probably on DraftKings or for the big tournaments, because there's just so many discounted dandies that we can look to here. Anything else that you want to cover from the Osmo?
In general, just a really appealing game. If Wall's out, then it boosts everyone on the Wizards. But we know that Cleveland just is going to offer a ton of really good plays here. And also, I think just worth pointing out, since there are potentially so many plays, like you end up with Satoransky and Rivers now in similar price ranges to like Colin Sexton and Alec Burks. I like the Cleveland side more than the Washington side.
All right, on to our next game. Chat, my apologies for the sound modulation here. That is the one thing that is tripping us up. I will try to keep speaking loudly so I'm not whispering, but then when the mic does actually engage like it's supposed to, it's going to sound like I'm shouting. So my apologies. Either way, we have the Battle of New York here. Brooklyn at the New York Knicks. Madison Square Garden in play here. The Knicks are 2.5-point home favorites. I use the word home loosely here. 220 over under. We have injury news and notes. It looks like Burks will be out for this one. They said he may play one of the games this weekend. The Knicks are the only team that is playing on Saturday that is also going to be playing on Sunday. Let's start off with the Knicks here. I think first and foremost, we're going to want to look to Enes Kanter. Adam, he has put up some very exciting games for us in the past. We know that he does have 2020 upside. He has done that twice this year. He is a walking double-double as long as he's going to get the minutes. And I think he should get the minutes here in a game that is a favorable matchup for him going against Jarrett Allen and company. Where are you ranking him amongst your plays? Because there's a lot of good guys that have center eligibility on DraftKings.
Yeah, I mean, center is a really deep position, but I do like Kanter. I think it's worth, talking about the minutes that he's played, because if you go and look, I think it's been 4 games now since he's played over 30 minutes, but I actually don't think that's overly concerning. If you look at the game against Boston in New York's most recent game, you got about 15 or 16 first half minutes from Enes Kanter, which would put him on pace for 30 to 32, obviously, if the game stays competitive. He didn't play at all in the fourth quarter. Still ended up in the mid-20s in minutes. Before that, you had a game against Washington, which I think was weird. I expected him to play more minutes than he did. The Knicks played Noah Vonleh more at the 5 than I expected. So that was a little bit concerning. But then before that, you had Milwaukee, where Giannis was they were playing small. Giannis was playing the 5. There's no way Kanter's ever staying on the floor in that spot. Game before that was a blowout. So you've seen the minutes trending down, but a lot of it's been either matchup or blowout related, not just intentionally limiting Kanter's minutes. So I think projecting him for 30 to 32 minutes in this spot against one of the worst rebounding teams in the NBA in Brooklyn is probably the right way to go. And it just makes him, a very appealing option at mid-range price tag. I'm trying to get Cruncher to pop up now. On my initial crunch on DraftKings, I ended up with almost no Kanter. On FanDuel, I ended up with, as my second highest owned center, at 14% behind Jokic. So I think that's probably just a product of, for one, I got 78% Jokic on DraftKings, but also just that you have, cheaper center options.
Yeah, I'm looking here now as well for me, and he's not really popping on either of the sites. Jokic is, again, dwarfing anything that the other center guys or center eligible players have. Their spots.
It's also because my baseline projections had him at 26 minutes and not 30.
Yep, 2% here. It looks like we're projecting him at 26 minutes.
Yeah, if I put him up to 30 minutes, now I'm getting him as a really good play.
Okay, so a lot of that's going to swing on the difference, and this is something that is also very helpful if you are aware of what some of the minutes are being used by some of the more popular projection sites out there. That can also help influence the crowd as a whole, the masses, as we like to say. And that's something where potentially you can see a player like Kanter falling out of a lot of people's automated crunches if they're not doing some manual adjustments, such as Adam is looking here and saying, all right, what are the different game scripts that we can look at? What do I think is going to happen in this particular matchup, et cetera? How do I think rotations are going to play out based on matchup? Now, most projection sites are looking at this, but we have learned that not all of them have everybody going in as detailed and looking to make a stand, because, Adam, people don't want people to lose with their projections. So sometimes they kind of pick a more median stance.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And especially, with NBA getting better, like everyone has access now to good enough models to where your projections aren't going to be that much different. But it is worth noting, and it's not that it's even like a flaw, but if you're manually doing your own minutes projections and you're dealing with your own money, you're naturally going to probably be willing to take on a little bit more risk than if you're setting minutes projections for 500 people, and that little adjustment can just kind of give you a little bit of an edge in terms of tournaments, and trying to figure out where maybe this guy's going to come in a little bit lower owned than he should based on his upside. So it's not a knock even on any sites the way they go about projections, because I think it's the right way to do it. It's just that just keeping an eye on that and trying to find spots where maybe the median projection undersells someone's upside is pretty nice way to find lower owned guys in tournaments.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't want that to come off as being smug in any way. Doing projections are difficult, especially with the NBA. There's a ton to look at all times. You've got to adjust minutes, projections, and rotations and everything for all these games. So there's a ton of stuff to be on top of. So this is just one more way, and that next level, if you're looking at what some of the other places are doing with their projections, you can kind of make a stand, because heck, you could look at some of your favorites and say, I don't agree with this. This is what I think is going to happen, and tweak accordingly. It's just like we see it with football and baseball and other sports. So it just is that when people lay out all the nice lines and minutes, and this is the rates and all of that with NBA, you can kind of see what is going on there. The other way that you kind of toss a lot of this out the window, and which I think is reasonable to do, especially if you're doing a large 150 team portfolio of your mass multi-entry, is if you on Fantasy Cruncher set the randomness. So what you're doing when you choose randomness, usually if you want to set it around 20 or 25, that's going to give you a standard deviation on either side of what is going on, approximately, speaking generalities here, but approximately of what somebody's actual projections are. So if you were to set up 9 different sites' projections against each other, they're all going to come within 25% of each other for the various players. So once you add that layer on, you just need to remember that, hey, if I'm manually tweaking minutes and then I'm going and saying, hey, add some randomness to this of what can happen, you're invalidating your own efforts and tweaking there. So just keep that in mind. You don't want to have different methodologies fighting against each other as you're doing things here. So if you don't have the time or the wherewithal to go through and figure everything out down to the minute, like what Adam prefers to do with his, set the randomness, and then you can catch different aspects of what their games could be. Because we know, even though basketball is the most projectable sport, weird stuff happens in every single game. Somebody going to miss all their shots, somebody going to make all their shots, somebody gets to the line, half a dozen times more than they normally do. Somebody gets 2 steals randomly or 2 blocks and they never get them, mucks everything up. So just reminders on how. Back to this game, Adam, as we move out to the backcourts, what do you like here, if anything, from the Knicks? Do the Knicks even like their own teammate? How are they not playing Frankie N? Even without Burks there, with him on the shelf, they're not really looking to him. Who knows what's going on with Moutier? Now we've got Dotson back in the mix. What do you think the Knicks backcourt is going to do tonight?
Oh, first, I just wanted to mention that I do like Noah Vonleh. Oh. I think that it's a really nice spot for him. Still playing really big minutes here. Lost a few in the Boston game to the blowout, but still played up around 30 minutes, and I think plays 34 to 36, assuming this stays competitive. So I do like Vonleh quite a bit. But going to the backcourt, I mean, Emmanuel Mudiay is playing huge minutes right now, which obviously is nice. He's actually been reasonably productive, and he's a volatile player, but he does have some upside, and it's not a bad matchup for him. So no issue with him, though his price tag, obviously has come up quite a bit, but 36, 36, and 34 minutes in his last 3 games. Usage rates up over 22.5% in all 3. So that's been really good to see. Also doing a pretty decent job picking up assists, which has been kind of an issue for him throughout his career. So I think Moutier is fine. Damyean Dotson, he got minutes, but most of it was in a blowout. He played 14 minutes or 13 and a half minutes to end that game. He played 7 minutes in the first half. So I'm not projecting Dotson to be useful at all here. Same goes for Courtney Lee, just not playing enough minutes, not a high per minute producer either. Alonzo Trier has basically, at least so far, taken the backup point guard role that Trey Burke had, but we're not seeing a ton of minutes alongside Moutier. We don't really know what happens if Moutier plays poorly and Trier plays well. We've seen Fizdale go with the hot hand approach to know that it's probably pretty likely that you would see Trier play more, but still not counting on that. So Moutier just pretty clearly becomes the only guy from this backcourt that I'm interested in.
All right. Anything else you would like to discuss. And when I say discuss, we have a whole Brooklyn team here, but we've got a mishmash of what's going on with them. So again, things were helped out a little bit by Karis LeVert not being here. We've seen D'Angelo Russell's price bounce up and down, much like his performances. We know that Spencer Dinwiddie is always lurking. He is a decent play who gets relatively steady minutes, but he's been overpriced on the two main sites for the last few games now, so he kind of loses some of his appeal. What are you looking at here, if anything, here for the Nets?
D'Angelo Russell on FanDuel is really attractively priced at 7,500. He's one of the guys on this team that actually can play over 30 minutes a night. Kenny Atkinson will run him out there for more than 30 minutes when he's playing well, especially. And so it lets you get 32 to 34 minutes from Russell when the game's competitive and he's playing well, which makes him, obviously a really nice tournament option when we know how high his ceiling is. Since the Karis LeVert injury, you're talking about usage rate up over 32%, an assist percentage up over 30%. And it's a nice matchup here against the Knicks. 8,100 on DraftKings is, I think, a lot less appealing, but 7,500 on FanDuel is pretty nice.
All right, I'm just confirming this, but it sounds like French Heritage Night is in play here. I'm looking at the Knicks because we do have Frankie, who is going to be from France. And it is Sunday, December 9th, so tomorrow. That will be tomorrow. So just file that one away. Adam and I are well aware that the manufactured Polish Heritage Night was always something that had Buddy Gortat playing well, regardless of whether he was hurt, not hurt, in the rotation, not in the rotation. That was almost a guaranteed 20 and 10 for him. Looks like French Heritage Night will be tomorrow.
Well, one serious note on Ntilikina, though, is that Fizdale was quoted as saying that Ntilikina is not out of the loop, I think was the phrase he used. So, again, just keep in mind the Knicks do whatever the hell the Knicks want, and it's not very consistent, and it wouldn't be surprising at all if Ntilikina suddenly is back in the rotation. That basically just reinforces that I'm much more interested in Moutier than I am in guys like Dotson or Trier or Courtney Lee.
All right, Adam, 24 days of giveaways. We are in week 2. We have a new prize. So as you guys all know how you qualify for this, or most of you do, some of you may not. When the show ends, you can go down to YouTube in the comments, set a comment there. We're going to put everybody that puts a comment in with today's comment into a drawing, and you will get 1 free month of Awesemo.com single sport, the sport of your choice. So if you want to get NFL, you get all the NFL stuff. You want to get NBA, and you get all the NBA stuff. And then everybody that participates in any of these comment giveaways will be able to be eligible for December 24th when we are giving away 1 full all-access annual pass for Awesemo.com. So today's comment is going to be, let's say, what is your favorite present that you received, be it for Christmas, Hanukkah, Rosh Hashanah. Well, I guess Rosh Hashanah week. But what do you got there? Kwanzaa, Festivus. List your favorite present that you ever got. Hell, let's put birthdays in there too. And that will get you eligible for the drawing. We're doing this on all of the Awesemo.com shows for YouTube. And then any of our podcasts, you can go over there to iTunes, give us a rating, and answer the comment question of the day. Again, today, what was your favorite gift that you have ever received? Adam, what is your favorite gift that you?
No idea.
No idea. Adam got some underwear one year from his grandma. That's his favorite gift that he's ever gotten. Me, that's a tough one. I got a leather jacket one, so that was kind of fun. Many moons ago, but that was something. There you go, leather jacket. And it wasn't pleather, it was actually. I just put that out. All right, continuing along here. Oh, the one thing I did want to say is I got the percentages up here into our mix, and I am coming up with 18% Spencer Dinwiddie, which kind of surprised me in this particular crunch on DraftKings. We have him at 2%. So that is where we say, hey, if you want to get over the field, now that would be dramatically over the field. Now I suspect Dinwiddie's percentage will probably settle in around 5 or 6% tonight in our projections. But if you want to get over on a player like that, you may only want to double it. So something along the 10% mark would be what you would look for in that situation. Heading to our next game here, Adam. Tons and tons of value in this one. We have Denver going into Atlanta. We have Denver favored by 6.5. We know that Prince is out. We know that Spellman is out for Atlanta. We know that Jeremy Lin is out, so they are running pretty thin there. We know on the Denver side, we have Gary Harris questionable with a hip injury, and he has been he was an in-game guy who left in his last outing. He left early. He's missed a couple here and there. He's someone that makes me nervous to look at, but at 5,500 on DraftKings, he is rather appealing here. Hopefully, we do have all of the information that we need to know. This game is starting a little after the initial 7 p.m. tip-off. Makes me nervous playing someone like Gary Harris. We do know that Paul Millsap is out with a broken toe. That makes Trey Lyles likely the most popular play of the day. He is 3,500 here on DraftKings. Looking at the crunches that I ran, I got him on 53% of my DraftKings crunches, and I've got him at 44% on FanDuel. I'm running that with just a 70% cap to see how high anybody is going to be getting. I'm guessing that we are going to see him at around a 40% popularity mark on both sites with one, his price, and two, on DraftKings. He slots in at 3 different positions there. What are you thinking here with Lyles? Do you want to join the herd? Is this what we would call good chalk?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, for one, it's a phenomenal matchup against Atlanta. It doesn't really get any better. But Trey Lyles, we talked about it some on the podcast, and really we've talked about it all season long, that he's a guy that you're just one Paul Millsap injury away from having a very, very productive player here in Lyles. And, now we got it. It's not like he's a bench guy being thrown into more minutes, and we don't expect him to come through very frequently. That would be Willy Hernangómez. Lyles is the guy who actually produces pretty consistently. Overall this season, averaging nearly a fantasy point per minute. Obviously takes a little bit of a hit when he plays alongside Murray and Jokic, as you would expect him to, but still, overall this season, a 24.8% usage rate, 0.96 fantasy points per minute. Quickly trying to put Jokic on the floor to see how much it changes, but the price tag, he's 3,500 on DraftKings, he's 3,600 on FanDuel. He has small forward eligibility on DraftKings, which is also very, very helpful. It's just really difficult, not to like him. We have 99 minutes this season alongside Jokic, 19.1% usage, 3/4 of a fantasy point per minute. Even if you were to, use that as the projection, he's giving you a perfectly acceptable outcome, especially when you factor in that he's playing Atlanta, and then also that it's only a 99-minute sample size, and Lyles will probably be more productive than that. So, I just think, pretty easily the top value guy on this slate.
It is kind of surprising to me that Denver is all the way down at number 4 in pace on season. Now, that's probably will change a fair amount because they're playing Atlanta, who checks in with fastest pace for season. They're missing a couple key players there, as we mentioned. Obviously, Will Barton's been out long enough that things have normalized with him out there, with him not in the mix, but slower guy. Someone that they look to run more half-court sets, etc. With Millsap may give Denver a bit of a boost here. But you're killing me, Adam. No kind words there for Willy Hernangómez, who also is a fantasy point per minute player. But I don't know that he packs the upside, because we've seen his minutes crest up, and gosh, he's not doing a lot of upside with them. Now, I think he's an intriguing pivot directly off of Trey Lyles. I think you can play both of them in your lineups tonight and have that not be an issue, just because there are going to be so many minutes around. But Adam, if you had to choose between one or the other, and looking at Lyles, Lyles has a projected 40% percentage popularity rating on DraftKings, and Hernangómez has half that at 19. knowing that information, if you were just playing one, which one would you go to? The good chalk in Lyles or the potential pivot there?
I would still go to Lyles. And yeah, I mean, Hernangómez, I like him fine. The matchup's good. The price tag's nice. Should play up over 30 minutes. Not a fantasy point per minute guy, though. Like, he's, no matter how you run it, he's 3/4 of a fantasy point per minute. He just isn't as involved as Trey Lyles is when he's out there. So, not as productive a player. He's, like $1,000 more expensive. So it's just not even really close to me. But, I still think Hernangómez is fine. I also think that, potentially you should have either Monte Morris or Malik Beasley getting a bunch of minutes here as well if Harris is out, especially. Probably Malik Beasley just based on recent rotations, but we've seen Morris, play a bunch of minutes at times this year as well. But Millsap being out, I would expect that you get Lyles obviously at the 4. He's been splitting the minutes with Millsap this year, but then you slide Hernangómez to the 4 for some minutes as well, which opens up more minutes for the small lineups that Denver's like to run, where you have Murray, Morris, Beasley combinations, Torrey Craig, out there. So I think it opens up the door for Monte Morris and Malik Beasley to both potentially be kind of the overlooked guys here, since they play different positions than Paul Millsap does, but still would like them in tournaments.
All right, and now we're seeing Jamal Murray here at 7,800 on DraftKings. Again, phenomenal matchup for him. Nikola Jokic, he's up to 9,200. Do you like those guys? What do you think your personal limit will be on number of Denver players you would have on a particular roster?
Probably 3. 2 to 3, just because it's such a nice matchup against Atlanta. The thing is, and there's so many cheap guys. Like, I don't think I would want like Monte Morris and Malik Beasley alongside each other. I probably don't want Murray and Jokic alongside each other, just because if they both go for 50 plus, I have no idea how Atlanta's not getting blown out of the gym. So things like that, kind of limiting who you have with who. But I just think that there's enough value here, and it's such a great spot that I'm fine going 2 to 3 guys from Denver.
Now, are there any particular situations where you're going to say, hey, if playing Jokic, make sure you bring back one of these guys from Atlanta as we start to look at the Hawks?
I don't plan on doing it that way, because Atlanta just has enough guys. Like, Atlanta runs such a deep rotation that it's perfectly conceivable they hang in this game. Jokic has a big game, and no one on Atlanta like really goes nuts. But the opposite direction, like if I'm playing Trey Young or Bazemore or someone, where if they go out there and if Trey Young gives me a 40 fantasy point game, Atlanta's probably hanging in there, which means that one of Murray or Jokic is probably going to have a really good game if they play 4 quarters. So I would do it that direction, because we have a better idea where the production comes from Denver than we do from Atlanta. And it's just a more appealing matchup for Denver. So like Jokic can go for 60 points and this game stay close. If Young goes for 60 points, the game's almost definitely staying close, which means I definitely want the scorers from Denver.
All right. On DraftKings, again, this was the first ownership projection, and these are updated several times throughout the day, including a couple times in the final hour. These have all sorts of inputs in them. They have projections. They take into account news. They can take into account social media, a variety of things, chatter around the industry, etc. The inputs are outstanding and varied. I do not envy the guys doing these behind the scenes. But currently we are sitting with Kent Bazemore on DraftKings at 40% popularity and Trey Young at 30%. Will you be over or under the field on that one? And just for perspective, my crunches are coming in at 51% Bazemore. Now on DraftKings, he's shooting guard and small forward eligible. So that means you get him at both those positions, plus guard, plus forward, plus utility. So he's got 5 slots that he's eligible for. But Trey Young, point guard eligible, I'm getting him at 16%. Talk to me about those two players. Again, field 40 and 30 respectively. Will you be higher or lower?
I would think lower. I'm scrolling down now to see where they came up in my baseline crunch. It's just not a particularly appealing matchup, against it's a pace down game. It's a respectable Denver defense. So looking on DraftKings, I got 34% Young in my initial crunch. I got 20% Bazemore. On FanDuel, I got, I don't know, because it won't load. There we go. I got 19% Young, and I got 16% Bazemore in my initial crunch. So, I think they're fine, but I am a little concerned about the matchup.
Okay, and then on FanDuel, the percentages we have right now are 27% for Bazemore and 25% for Young. And the reason I just want to call that out is I have a feeling a lot of the chatter, the masses, the popular play is going to be, hey, I'm going to load up on a bunch of Denver guys. I'm going to throw in a couple Atlanta guys, and then I'm going to pick, LeBron and one other superstar. And I think Adam has a very, very good point here. There is still a deep situation here for Atlanta, even though Spellman is out. Even though Prince is out, they are just kind of want to play a bunch of people everywhere. A little bit frustrating. So we just wanted to point that out. Any final thoughts on this game,
To loop back to your question about Hernangómez and Trey Lyles, just to kind of put context on it, looking at the DraftKings pricing, because that's what I have in front of me right now. But if I give Hernangómez 36 minutes and Lyles 27 minutes, which I'm not even convinced is what I'm going to do. Like, I probably will end up giving Lyles a few more minutes and taking a couple away from Hernangómez. But I have Hernangómez with a 22% chance of hitting the target score for him that I use for DraftKings tournaments. I have Trey Lyles at 44%. So just going back to your question of like, who would I rather play? I have Lyles, even where I think I probably actually am under projecting Lyles. I still have Lyles as twice as likely to get to where I would like him to based on his salary.
Okay, fair enough. We are going to move along here to our next game. Let me get that up. It is Boston at Chicago. Feels a little bit pedestrian, Adam, after going through several games here that have tons of just great options, and I feel confident about these plays. We've got Boston on the road by 8, 215 over under here in Chicago. We know that Chris Dunn and Bobby Portis probably are not going to play with their respective MCL injuries, but they have now been popping up onto the injury report before being ruled out the last couple days. We saw them do that with Lauri Markkanen as well, and he ended up returning a couple days early. So just keep in mind that Dunn and Portis are out there and could just further muck up some of our minutes here. Let's start at the top with, let's go with Chicago first. We have Zach Attack here. As you mentioned, the dynamic pricing is in full effect. He's got a bit of a discount here going against Boston. Is that, now that you've had time to sleep on that one, Adam, are you still looking at Zach as a potential key play for you?
Yeah, especially, on DraftKings, he's $7,600. And we talk about it a lot. We talked about it on the podcast. Josh and I have talked about it at length, and Lofty and myself as well. Price, at the end of the day, price and opportunity is what really matters in DFS. Everyone has a price point that, regardless of matchup, you would want to play them. And people tend to overlook that because it's really easy when you're going through to just be like, oh, Chicago's playing Boston. Boston's really good, blah, blah, blah. I don't want to play these guys. DraftKings has been more aggressive recently in their pricing and reducing price tags. You look at D'Angelo Russell, who was 6,900 against Toronto last night, is 8,100 today against the Knicks. Zach LaVine down to 7,600, still playing 37 to 38 minutes if this game's competitive. And if the game's competitive, there's a pretty good chance Zach LaVine is a big reason why. So I think that at a similar price point to Jamal Murray, who I would expect to be much higher owned, it's a nice pivot because the upside's there, the opportunity's there, the matchup sucks, but that's factored into his price. So no issue going to LaVine in tournaments. I'd rather go to Jamal Murray in cash games, but the pivot probably is worth it in tournaments because they project very similarly.
All right. Interesting news update here, Adam. And this is coming from Fantasy Labs. So after missing Wednesday's win for personal reasons, Wall has returned to the team. It will be a game time decision on Saturday due to an illness. He is at the team hotel in Cleveland, but did not participate in the shoot-around.
Awesome.
Could we have more mixed messaging with personal, but now he might be sick, but he is in Cleveland, but he didn't practice in shoot-around?
I love the NBA.
Oh, good times. Well, John, I hope you have a nice lunch, a little chicken soup, make you feel a little bit better, get a little nap, a little rest, and then you can still be a game decision. But congrats on the newborn. Always a time. Oh boy. All right. Back to the game at hand. We've got Zach, as you mentioned. Markkanen is back in the mix. Pricing may vary depending on the site you're playing. Wendell Carter's price is down as long as Portis doesn't rejoin the team or the action anytime soon. I think Carter is adequate here at 5,400. Of course, you're going to have to give up a center spot. I do believe he did regain power forward eligibility there on DraftKings. Marcus, wrong team. Justin Holiday. Anybody else here? I could see a sprinkling of Wendell Carter. Lauri Markkanen, I don't hate on a site like a Draft, the Draft app, where you're not really worried about the salary cap and it's all raw points because he's coming off back-to-back 40-point fantasy games. This is a tougher matchup, though. Thoughts on Markkanen or Wendell Carter?
Yeah, I mean, I don't hate either one, but I'm not that excited for them either. Levine's the one that really seems underpriced to me. Carter, I think, is as well, just less than Levine. Markkanen seems pretty fair here. Tough matchup, 6K plus price tag. Has to actually have like a good game to get there, and can certainly underperform. So out of the three, I would go Levine, Carter, Markkanen.
All right, let's move over to the Boston side. Feels like everybody at the full complement of minutes, no real injuries to worry about there. Easier matchup just makes me not really excited about any of them. The one injury that we do have is Baines. He is doubtful. If he's out, we could see Daniel Tice in the mix somewhat, but I think there are better cheap plays out there. For me, I'm going to go look over here at the crunch and see if the unbiased play brought any Boston players in. No, Irving is the only one at 20%. That's it. Will you have any Boston players?
Yeah, I mean, I like Kyrie. It's obviously a good spot against the bad Chicago defense. Kyrie's been more aggressive as we've seen him, get back in the rhythm this season. Over the last month, up around a 32% usage rate. So that's been really good to see, and I think he has plenty of upside here. Beyond that, everyone's kind of just priced correctly, I think, on this team for them to be at full strength. So it's really Kyrie or nothing from the Celtics.
All right. That means we can move along to our next game here. We've got 3 left. We've got the Lakers. We've got Memphis. This one is Memphis being favored by 2. We have our lowest over-under of the slate. We have 208.5. The marquee options here, of course, are going to be LeBron James and Marc Gasol. Reminder that we do have Joakim Noah is back in the league. He is playing. Adam's got some thoughts about him. And then Mike Conley, 12-year player. Mike Conley never made an all-star team. I was reading a little article about that. Those are kind of the 3 guys I'm looking at in this one, Adam. We should have plenty of cash to get up there to LeBron James. He is eligible at small forward, power forward, so that gives us some flexibility on DraftKings. You do have 2 slots available for him on FanDuel. With all of the value, it seems like we could relatively easily get him if we want. He's coming off back-to-back 60 fantasy point performances. Talk to me about LeBron in this match.
Yeah, kind of torn on what to do with LeBron because on one hand, obviously he's the only true superstar on this slate. He is reasonably priced, below 11K on DraftKings at 11-1 on FanDuel, but it's just not an appealing matchup. It's a back-to-back for the Lakers. Memphis is a very good defensive team who plays at a very slow pace. So just not the most appealing matchup. And also, worth factoring in that there's no one really at the top to take attention away from LeBron on this slate. So you probably see, like, if people are going to 4 stars and scrubs, they're getting LeBron. So probably comes in higher owned than he normally would in a matchup against Memphis. I don't think he's totally necessary. Like my baseline crunch is he popped up in 10% of my FanDuel lineups and 15% of my DraftKings lineups. I'm not saying that that's where I'm going to end up or anything because I have plenty of stuff to adjust, but it just goes to show that there's plenty of other directions to go. I think that on FanDuel when we did the podcast last night, I said that I thought James would be more appealing because of how weak the position is. But then you got Goran Dragic ruled out. So you get more appeal for guys like Justice Winslow and Josh Richardson at that position. It opens up some value there. On DraftKings, you can play Trey Lyles at small forward. So I think that as of right now, I just would rather, allocate my money somewhere else.
All right, running on Draft or FanDuel, we have him at projected for 34% popularity right now. My initial crunch got him at 42, so a little bit over. I kind of think of that as being within the ballpark when you're talking about the lone outpost play, top end play of the night, the top shelf guy. But again, situation, matchup, remainder of your lineup construction may vary. We have him at 24% on DraftKings. My crunch had him at 25. So I'm guessing that building the 150 lineups will come in more neutral towards the field with him. And I have no problem with that. This is one of those matchups where not that great, but I don't hate him as the probably best pure raw points projected play on the evening. So that's where the fun game theory aspect of things starts to get into the here. Uh, Anybody else from the Lakers that you would consider since Brandon Ingram is going to be out? We did see Josh Hart start the last game. You had a nice little soliloquy there talking about how the absence of Brook Lopez is hurting Hart's rebounding upside, because he was one of those guards where it was not uncommon to see him get 8, 9, or 10 rebounds in a game where he played 25 to 30 minutes. It was just wild. Team construction's entirely different this week. We have Tyson Chandler, we have JaVale McGee, we've got LeBron. It's an entirely different world. So I don't know that I want to go there, but I'm guessing he is a little bit popular unless people come to that being Hart. We have him projected at 6%. My crunch is bringing him in.
Yeah, I mean, he played 36 minutes. He's cheap. That's nice and everything. He's played 169 minutes this season without Ingram or Rondo on the floor alongside LeBron and Lonzo. 13.5% usage, 8.2% rebounding percentage, averaging about 0.7 fantasy points per minute. And it's, an unappealing matchup against Memphis. So I'm not really that interested in him. The point that you alluded to about Brook Lopez is just that, last year we saw him just racking up double doubles when he got, a bunch of minutes. But Brook Lopez is someone who draws his defender away from the basket, boxes him out, and then lets, in that case, Josh Hart grab the rebound. Kind of similar to what we see happen with Russell Westbrook grabbing rebounds for Oklahoma City. With the current Lakers team, with Tyson Chandler and JaVale McGee at the 5, that's not the case. So you're converting Josh Hart back more into a low usage guard who is going to be on the floor a bunch and can run into some hustle stats, but it's just not as consistent a role for his productivity as we saw last season. So, as a minutes play, it's fine, but it's not someone that I'm prioritizing here. Like, I don't think he's even close to Trey Lyles, for example, at a similar price point in terms of what I expect them to produce.
All right. Question here in chat from Eric Wilson. It says, any thoughts on why the JaVale McGee production has dropped so significantly? Do we think it changes or stay away from him now? I think based on what Adam was just kind of saying there, he's going to be a stay away. Tyson Chandler really is impacting him getting those that extra run, and it was a fun early season dalliance, but I think the bloom is off the rose for us from a DFS perspective with regards to JaVale McGee for the time being. Do you feel any different now?
Yeah, I mean, assuming that by the production dropping off, he means like his total scores. It's just that he's not playing the minutes. We were seeing 30 plus minutes. Now you have Tyson Chandler and him either splitting basically normally down the middle, like 24-24, or a little bit off of that. But also Kyle Kuzma at times against smaller teams playing the 5 as well, which had stopped for a little bit. So yeah, it's just a minutes thing with McGee. He's still productive on a permanent basis. The minutes just aren't there like they were before. And that's something that I expect to continue just because there's no reason for the Lakers to be looking to run JaVale McGee into the ground, early in the season.
Yeah, and I don't think we're going to see many, veteran day off for Tyson Chandler, because they're not playing him a ton of minutes either. He's finally with a good team again after having been in the purgatory of Phoenix for a while. So I don't think anything's going to change here unless we have an injury. Looking over to the Memphis side of things here, Gasol, somewhat interesting to me. Mike Conley, another differentiation play. We know he has 40 fantasy point upside in any game with Gus up to 50. And for whatever reason, daily fantasy sports gamers do not like to roster him. And then we have Jaren Jackson Jr. Shout out to Lofty along with you, chat, for coming up with that nickname. He has been anointed Jaren Jackson Jr. by Lofty, so we will stick with that. Amongst that big 3, anybody going to be cracking your core group?
So Gasol, I think it matters if Joakim Noah is available for this game. Obviously the first back-to-back for Noah, we know that he's still trying to get back into basketball shape. It wouldn't be surprising at all if he's ruled out of this one after playing 17 minutes last night. If he's out, then you can add a couple minutes on to Marc Gasol. We saw him playing 38 minutes a night in competitive games before Noah's addition. So getting him back to that 36 to 38 minute range, I think would make perfect sense if Noah's out. If Noah's in, then I just become less interested in him because I expect him to play 32 to 34 minutes, and he's still expensive enough where it's not that exciting. Jaren Jackson, I really, really like in tournaments. You know the risk you're getting with this guy. We saw it again last night, predictably against the Pelicans front court. That's very active. Got in foul trouble early and stayed in foul trouble. But when he's not in foul trouble, you should still see 30 plus minutes from him in a huge pace up spot here. He's capable of stretching the floor. He's capable of doing everything when he's out there and producing at a high clip. So I think that the volatility is something we should probably embrace in tournaments. I mean, stay away from the guy in cash games. There's no reason to play him. But in tournaments, I think that we should just look to get him in the lineups, get his upside in there, because people are going to shy away from him, even though the spot is really good. And even with Noah being there, we've seen him get some of the minutes when Gasol's off the floor. And if Noah's out, it makes it even more appealing for him as well. So Jackson is really the guy that I'm most interested in from this Memphis team, only in tournaments though.
Right. Reminder, 24 days of giveaways continues. This is week 2. All you need to do to be eligible to participate for today's drawing is leave a comment on the YouTube comment section. No, not in chat, but in the actual comment section. Today's comment is, what was the favorite gift you have ever received, be it for the holidays, be it for your birthdays? Tell us what that was, and you will be in the drawing for a free 1-month subscription to any sport offered by Osmo.com. Would you like NFL? Would you like NBA? You're all set. You'll get all of the projections, both for the ownership and performance projections, the premium articles, if you're a winner for whichever sport that is. Plus, you'll be entered into the grand prize drawing, which will take place on December 24th, in which we are giving away 1 full year of all Osmo premium content. Very, very nice deal. You're going to want that for yourself. Adam's going to get one of those for his sister. He is his favorite person in the world, and that's what he likes to do. His favorite person in the world is whatever DFS site he is working for gets that subscription. All right, 2 more games here. We have Minnesota and Portland. Should be a fun one. 217 over under. We've got a couple of behemoths here in the paint with Karl Anthony Towns and Yusuf Nurkic. The only injury concerns that I believe we have would be CJ McCollum, who missed the last game. I wouldn't really say he missed it. It was going to be a blowout. So they gave him the night off to rest a sprained ankle because he tweaked his ankle in a game where he played 40 minutes. They said, nah, we got this one without you, CJ. We'll see you in the next one. So should be a full complement of players for both squads here. What do you like here starting from the pivot position? Is it going to be a Karl Anthony Towns kind of night, or is it going to be a Yusuf Nurkic kind of night?
Both. Really like both of these
hands
guys.
Together, Adam. I like that. Secret option C. Well played.
Yeah.
Well played.
I mean, I like both of these guys, which I don't think is surprising. For what it's worth, their past history against each other is absolute dog shit, but I don't really care. It's just not something I factor in all that much. Towns, since the Jimmy Butler trade, has about a 28% usage rate, still playing 38 minutes a night in games that are competitive where he's not in foul trouble. If you look at the inconsistency of his game logs recently, a lot of that has been due to either foul trouble or blowouts, where his minutes have been down. The permanent production's still been fine. So not concerned at all. I think that he clearly still just has monster upside at his price tag. Like, I'd rather go to Nikola Jokic in cash games, where he's a little bit cheaper. But for tournaments, I think that the expensive price tag on Towns probably scares people away a bit, and really just don't think it should. So still averaging like 1.3 fantasy points per minute for the season, even including his time with Jimmy Butler. So yeah, I like Towns. And then on the other side, Nurkic is just always kind of underpriced, especially on DraftKings, because for whatever reason, normally it's fouls or blowouts. People think that he's going to play 26 to 28 minutes, when in reality, in close games, he almost always is playing up around 32. So plenty of upside. Again, Nurkic, a 1.3 fantasy point per minute guy as well. yeah, really like both of them.
All right, looking at a popularity standpoint, Towns on DraftKings is checking it at 18, Nurkic at 14. My initial crunch had them respectively at 15 and 12, so coming right around where the field is. Looking here on FanDuel, I got him at Towns at 11. We have him at 13, and then Nurkic, kind of an afterthought, Adam, 2% on FanDuel. No real surprise there because there are lots of centers and you can play one on FanDuel. Knowing that he's going to come in at sub 5% on FanDuel, how would you approach that in a matchup where you do like him, such as this one?
Yeah, obviously not as appealing on FanDuel because you can only roster one of them. And also, don't remember off the top of my head what he's priced at on FanDuel, but he's been considerably more expensive on FanDuel than DraftKings. Yeah, $8,600 today again. So you have him $1,300 more expensive on FanDuel. Makes him, a much less appealing option there. It's not someone I'm prioritizing on FanDuel, but so I think he's a better DraftKings play.
So in a situation like that, center you like coming in low, maybe where he's going to be at 2 to 5%, would you kind of say, you know what, I'll take double on the field and cap him at 10?
I mean, I think I would end up coming in overweight on him just because in my baseline crunch, I got 5% and I also had him under projected. So, when I bump him up from, the 28-minute average or whatever to 32 minutes, then I'm going to end up getting more than the field.
All right. Looking at the remainder of this game, let's start down the Minnesota side. Relatively full strength. So we know that means not a lot of guys are going to be getting the excess minutes easily. There's a path for a variety of guys to get them. Do we have the hot hand? Is somebody getting foul trouble, etc.? But it's kind of hard to say, it's going to be this guy. If I had to say, it's going to be this guy, Robert Covington would be the one guy I would consider. He has been very solid since moving over to Minnesota. He has been playing between, averaging 35 minutes since becoming a member of the Timberwolves, but he is regularly hitting that 37, 38-minute mark, which is just phenomenal. It's allowing him to up his scoring, and we know he's always in the mix for the hustle helper stats, always active in the passing lanes, averaging over 2 steals per game since Timberwolf, and averaging just shy of 1 block a game. Those are some great numbers. How are you feeling about Rocco this season?
If I get him, I get him. It's not someone that I'm looking to prioritize. I do think that he's a reasonable pivot away from, like Josh Richardson, who I expect to be much more popular at the same price point. I think Richardson's a better play, but, you're going to get around 38 minutes from both guys. I have Covington projected, to score 33 to 34 fantasy points. So, I think that from an ownership standpoint, that's a spot that it wouldn't be crazy to, maybe look to get over on Covington at the expense of Richardson, just because that it will make you different. So yeah, nothing wrong with Covington. Like he popped up on my DraftKings baseline crunch. He popped up at like 9%.
Okay, that seems somewhat reasonable. Anybody else here from the T-Wolves?
Not really. It's Towns, far and away my favorite guy here. Then Covington, and then everyone else.
Right, a couple updates here. Iman Shumpert out for rest. Aaron Baines out officially with his ankle. We of course kind of mentioned that. With Baines, but Shumpert is new one there, so that's just one left guy to worry about in Sacramento. Looking at the Portland side of things, Damian Lillard, 9,400, but he is one of the handful of guys that we have up there that it has that superstar potential tag from a fantasy perspective. He has 50 fantasy point upside for sure. We love him. He's one of the best second half, particularly fourth quarter players in the game. How are you feeling about Lillard, McCollum, Evan Turner, anybody there in the backcourt for the Trailblazers?
Yeah, kind of just not overly interested in this game. I mean, Lillard clearly has upside at 9,400 on DraftKings. There's just no way in hell I want to pay 10-6 for him on FanDuel. But it's been a really good Minnesota defense since the trade. We've seen them be one of the most efficient defenses in the league since picking up Covington. And point guard's a deep enough position with plenty of upside in the mid-range where I just don't feel like it's necessary to allocate that much money to the top of the position here. It wouldn't be shocking if Lillard goes out and has a big game, and if he ends up in some lineups, then fine. But if I'm sitting down to try and, build out one lineup that I think has the most upside for tournaments, I don't think Lillard's where I'm starting because, just like for comparison's sake, He's 9,400 on DraftKings. Towns is 9,700. Jokic is at 92 or 9,300. I think that going to either of those other two guys probably gives you a higher ceiling than Lillard. And then on FanDuel, 10-6, it's just really, really expensive there, obviously.
All right. Final thoughts from this game, or shall we hit the nightcap?
Play the centers.
Play the centers. Double up. Split your lineups. Have some fun. Here we go. Final game, nightcap. Miami at Staples Center. Have the Clippers by 9.5 point favorites. We have a 221 over under in this game. For the Clips, no real injury news that we need to worry about. For Miami, a couple uncertainties. We have a couple of new fathers in Hassan Whiteside and Wayne Ellington. I'm guessing that neither one plays tonight. Sorry, I'm losing my voice. Okay, because we also know that Goran Dragic is out. So that does open up the minutes. Now, I was saying on the podcast from last night that I was not that interested in Josh Richardson. But now that we are pretty sure these three guys are going to be gone, Adam, I think Richardson is probably in play. But the guy everybody's talking about, I see him talking about him in chat, I have seen him pop in the projections, is Bam Adebayo here. His price has come up. He is 5,400. I think that's a steal. He's eligible at center and power forward, so we do have some flexibility there with Bam. If you're working a lineup with Bam, Lyles, Juancho Hernangómez, the world is your oyster, Adam. What do you think here with the Miami?
Yeah, I mean, it's just another example of good chalk here with Bam Adebayo. He's been the backup center to Whiteside all season long. He's another guy, like we talked about with Trey Lyles, when there are starters out and you have bench guys inserted into the rotation, it's really important to pay attention to the type of player they are. Is it someone that's going to just be out there for more minutes and probably not produce, or is it someone like Adebayo who is very productive on a permanent basis and now is just going to play more of them? So another example of really good chalk, I think. Kelly Olynyk, if you look at what happened last night, Kelly Olynyk essentially played backup center, and then they closed alongside each other in a not really that competitive game. The lineup of Olynyk, or lineups with Olynyk and Adebayo on the floor together, have been very productive for Miami this season. So it wouldn't be surprising maybe to see Olynyk get some more minutes tonight than he did last night, but I don't expect it to be at the expense of Adebayo. So I just still think it's another really appealing spot for Adebayo. It's not a Clippers front court that I'm concerned about defensively either. He's played 364 minutes without Dragic or Hassan Whiteside on the floor this season. He's averaged 1 fantasy point per minute. Price tag still down, still has plenty of upside. So nothing to dislike there. You can get into Kelly Olynyk as a tournament option. I would like James Johnson if we had any indication that he's in shape to play more than 20 minutes a night. But it doesn't seem that way. So I would go Olynyk over Johnson in the front court, but Adebayo is just still my favorite play there.
All right, looking across to the multiple forward options that we have here from the Clippers, Tobias Harris, price dipping back down a little bit on DraftKings because of recent performance. Danilo Gallinari, kind of solidly where he has been in the mid to upper 6,000s. And then, of course, you have Montrell Harrell for, the first time in what feels like a while, he is the third lowest priced of that trio. Generally, it's been Tobias, Montrell, and Gallinari on DraftKings. Any one of those guys stand out to you? Perhaps a 5,300 Lou Williams, maybe a $4,000 Avery Bradley. Anybody from the Clips as we up the show today?
In general, the Clippers have just been pretty correctly priced this season, but I do think it's a nice spot for Harrell at 6,500. If we assume Whiteside's out, you're talking about a small front court here from Miami. It just makes it even easier for Harrell to get into that 30 to 32 minute range as opposed to 27 to 28. And the price tag coming back down, obviously gives him some upside. Wouldn't be surprising at all to see a 40-point game out of Harrell here, which would be pretty nice. So some interest in him. I'm not opposed to Tobias Harris, whose price tag has also come down a bit to 7,400. But out of the group, Harrell's the one that I like the most.
All right, Harrell. Another reminder: there's a guy you can get as your forward to quite a bit over there on draft, particularly on slates like this, and he generally projects much lower than he performs over there. That's one of the ways you can take some advantage of that site. Adam, overall thoughts on the slate. This looks like a fun one. I think this is going to be a great mix and match option. We do have so many discounted guys. It's going to be allowing us to live in the mid to upper tier, because I think you can forego some of the guys that we mentioned, such as LeBron or Lillard, because there are guys that are 15-20% discounted that have a similar upside projection within the realistic range of outcome. LeBron is LeBron, but he's 17 years career. We're not going to get. Are we going to get 3 60-point performances in a row? I don't know. Don't want to count. It is LeBron. Final thoughts as we get on now.
Just wanted to point out Justice Winslow, who I think we forgot to touch on from the Miami side, should play 30 to 32 minutes here and is small forward eligible, which obviously makes him really, really appealing as well. Averaging 0.93 fantasy points per minute without Dragic or Whiteside on the floor this season. He's one of the wings that takes on more of a ball handling role. Granted, Tyler Johnson being back knocks that down a little bit, but I just still think that Winslow is a pretty appealing option at a relatively weak position.
All right, last plug, 24 days of giveaways. Leave a comment at the bottom of the YouTube chat telling us what your favorite gift you've ever received was. It could be for the holidays, it could be for your birthdays, and we will do a random drawing. Winner gets 1 free month of their choice of any sport at Awesemo.com. Hey, if you're already an Awesemo.com subscriber, play anyways, because wait for it, we're unveiling it, the Awesemo Swag Shop. If you go to shop.awesemo.com, you can see what we have available for offers. And if you're already a subscriber to Awesemo and you win one of the giveaways, you can choose an item out of the swag store, and that will be your prize. And again, anybody that participates in any of these daily giveaways will be eligible for the year-end giveaway, where we are giving away a full annual subscription to Awesemo.com on December 24th, as Santa Claus, Kris Kringle, whatever you know him as, is racing around at the speed of, I don't know, the speed of toy delivery, making all the children happy, including one Adam Star, because there's going to be a 24-pack of Keystone Light as well. All right, gamers, with that, we are going to get on out of here. We do have a show coming up a little bit later with Jay Kari covering the hockey. We have the On the Contrary with Alex Awesemo Baker himself, joined by Evan Silva. You're going to get Evan with all of his knowledge up to the very last minute as we build lineups, getting ready for kickoff tomorrow. That will be run by Chris Baggs. And then you'll get Fast Eddie Fear tonight with Live Before Lock. And then tomorrow on Sunday, beginning at 11, you will get Jazz Raz, Ben Raza, and Dave Loughran, also known as Laffy D, talking some NFL. And then Spags will be joined by Josh Engelman, taking you up to lock in week 14 of what should be a very exciting game. With that, gamers, good luck.